how hard should an agency push back on a client before it's too much? When should a brand let the agency take over?
That's a difficult question.
So yeah, so how much room do you give the agency to do what you hired them to do and be creative and bring different marketing ideas to the table, or are you more like to direct the strategy and have them implement type of thing?
You know, I think that goes back to exactly what we've been talking about, and knowing the company, knowing the processes, understanding the person on the other side of the phone. Personally, I like to take a step back. I let my account manager do a lot of the day-to-day strategizing, the tactics of it. I don't have that time. That's why we have them. You know, they're in the trenches. One thing that we did do up front was discuss, you know, what will our weekly calls look like? What will we discuss? What will monthly calls look like? What will we go over? For instance, our monthly calls, we typically have our director there. We speak extremely high level, you know, revenue, cost, traffic to the site. But weekly, I like to talk about strategy. I like to get a little bit involved. So we kind of talk about some of the new aspects coming out, some of the new beta versions coming out. You know, can we try this? Can we try that? But again, I think it comes back to what makes the most sense for your business process.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely highly important that the agency and the relationship is in a way that the agency can go all in, pushing back if it's against their strategy or they don't see it as a bad idea. No, a good idea, sorry.
Right.
But there's also, I mean, taken as an airline, we work with 16 gateways, and we definitely have red flags at some point in time with some of the gateways where, I mean, we are pushing the agency for a CPT to be below a certain level, but there do come times where the urgency is just so high that we need to kind of, extend that roof we are willing to go over.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the time when the agency needs to say, okay, but still making us aware that kind of this, what will happen if we do it, or potentially happen.
Right, and that comes down to a lot of trust too. You want to work with an agency that you trust their marketing strategies and that they know what they're doing. You know, if they're pushing back on something, you want to be able to say, hey, maybe this isn't a good idea. That's how you know you're working with someone where it's a little bit of give and take.
I think it's important to lay out key metrics in the beginning as
Sure.
well. We had a lot of conversations around what are we looking at day to day, month to month, year over year. It's different for every company. If those metrics are impacted and I don't see it, then yeah, you need to push back on me. We need to have a conversation. You need to start it, and we need to come out of that conversation with an action plan. If it's not affecting or severely affecting those key metrics, then maybe it's not, as severe, not as much pushback. But I think always bringing it up in a topic and knowing when to bring it up is important.
I think that the 360 method for aligning on that is really important, because I think one of the worst situations that I've seen, and I will own up to this, my team get into, is to push back on something, and then at the end of the year, we do a 360 on the agency, they do a 360 on us, and we turn around and we go, well, you just weren't innovative this year. They were like, well, we tried. We tried. So here are the 12 examples of how we tried, and you guys said no, or vice versa, right? And I feel like those are really important open conversations to say, here's what we want to accomplish, and here's where you guys have the reins, and here's maybe where you don't. When you're making a strategic decision, for example, we changed search platforms not too long ago. And when we made the change, we made it for a very strategic reason. The platform that we had gave us no transparency. We really just didn't have any sense of ownership or real understanding and purpose for where we were going and what we were doing. And the head of strategy flew down from Chicago, I want to say 4 times over a 2-month period, to basically tell me that that was the dumbest move he had ever heard, because I later found out his team was the team who developed that platform. But once you're going through that and somebody is being very deliberate about, I definitely want to make this move, and I have a list of rationale, of reasons why I'm making this decision, pushing back at that point is actually quite detrimental to the agency relationship, to your point about trust.
Right.
Because I'm saying, here's my vision, and when you're really also jointly building a roadmap, it should be very clear to everybody, where do you want to go at the end of the day? And then it should be clear, here are the decisions that I want to make from the brand side of the house, and here are the decisions I want you guys to make, and how can we partner together to make them, which at the end of the day then helps bring everybody together.
Okay. So that leads me to another question about transparency. That's a big thing that we talk about with brands and things of that nature. They're coming from an agency that doesn't give them access to different accounts, things of that nature. Is that a red flag for you guys if you're looking at agencies that not hide information but don't open the doors for you to see everything?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Huge red flag. I've personally had an experience where the vendor's reporting was incorrect. We didn't know that. I was new to the company, so I came in and did my own audit, and I had dug that up. If I had access to their reporting and some of their other details, this would have came out a lot quicker and earlier on in the process. It was severely over-reporting what we were doing. So it impacted, the bottom line and top sales, and it was a big deal. Transparency is number 1 or number 2 on the top list.
Yeah, good or bad information, you want to know
Absolutely.
immediately, right? So if it's bad information, okay, what are you guys doing to
Right.
make things better, right?
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, this goes both ways. I mean, in terms of sharing information and trust.
Sure.
And it's a trust issue that from the client side, you want to give every piece of information valid for the agency to be able to consult in the best way, even though a lot of it's highly confidential. But, and the same is from the other side is the agency must trust that the client will not just take this information and leave the agency. So it's a huge red flag if
Right.
you experience that the agency is withholding valuable information.
Right. So from your end, if you're unhappy with something that the agency's doing, just being upfront and honest and giving them the chance to make things better instead of just.
Yeah, I mean we've had previously examples where kind of, of course, a brand campaign in PPC is definitely with the lowest cost per transaction, while kind of the VIA campaign to the Europe campaigns have by far the highest cost per transaction, while a previous agency, they were kind of hiding brand within VIA to make it look better.
Gotcha.
So yeah, and that definitely there, when we kind of cleaned it up, we saw, hey, this is just bullshit.
You can make data say anything.
Exactly.
So splitting things out now, is that how you look at things?
Yeah,
brand
so
and non-brand?
completely split it out, and,
Yeah.
and then we see the true numbers, and I mean, of course, the Europe destination numbers look much worse, but I mean, that's also the marketplace where everyone is fighting, so yeah.
So I was at American Express for 11 years, and at some point in the middle there, we changed search agencies. And in terms of red flags, one of the most amusing of them, we had a bunch of people RFP, and they all came in and met with some pretty senior people. And I was in charge at that time of what was the RFP and how are we bringing everybody in and prepping everyone. And this particular team, which is a very large agency, it was theirs to lose because they had owned our organic business. And we said, okay, wouldn't it be nice if we had the same agency manage our organic and our paid business all together? And so completely theirs to lose. They brought in a bunch of marketing people who told us a lovely story that was, here's roses and unicorns, and it will be fantastic. And so it came time for questions, and I said, okay, where are your data guys? I see the plan, like how many people are gonna be on the account? Where are your analytics folks? And they looked at me, kind of perplexed, and said, we can get you a guy offshore. And we said, thank you very much, that's very nice. And so, right, I mean, setting those expectations up front of transparency, data, expectations, as a client, what do we want from you, and how soon can you get those red flags in by having those conversations, whether you're new to the game because this is a new role to you, or you're RFPing, it's equally as important as really setting that foundation.
Sure, if you feel like they're hiding something, I mean, even if it's a small issue, it's going to feel like a bigger thing because why are they hiding it, right?